Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am talking about mental health in YA books. So this is a topic that was chosen for me by my patrons. One of my rewards on Patreon is that every month at a certain level, patrons get to vote on a video that I will definitely be doing that month. So January, they got 4 options, and they picked this one, which I'm really excited about because I have wanted to talk about this for a long time. I've wanted to do this video for a long time. Also, Cece's sitting down. That's how you know it's a discussion video and things are getting serious. Honestly, you know what's wild is that I used to absolutely hate sitting down for videos, and now it's very calming. I don't know. I don't know what shifted. Usually it's because I'm moving too much, and that's why I have to stand, because I can't really move around a lot on a chair when I'm seated, but maybe I just like sitting more now, because it's nice. Anyway, the point is that I am talking about 5 different YA books. I'm going to give you kind of a summary of each of them, talk a little bit more about the mental health that they discuss, talk about why it's personal to me, explain why it's important that YA normalizes getting help. Yeah, that's basically the outline for this video. Hope you are ready, because I have wanted to film it for a while. So first, let me tell you the 5 books that I'm specifically talking about, and I'm just gonna do these in publication order. So we have 1 2017 release, 3 2018 releases, and 1 2019 release that hasn't been released yet, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway because it fits perfectly into the topic of this video and because I want to. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli, Let's Talk About Love by Kann, Final Draft by Riley Redgate, Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram, and I Wish You All the Best by Deaver. So I'm going to be summarizing all of these books, talking a little bit more about the mental health that they specifically discuss. This is in no way supposed to be a video saying that these are the only 5 books in YA that discuss mental health. As I was sitting down to work on this video, I just looked around my shelf and picked up a couple of other options, like Anger is a Gift by Oshiro, We Are Okay by LaCour, We Are the Ants by Shaun Hutchinson. These are just a couple that I grabbed off, like, just the top of my head, trying to remember. These also all deal with mental health in some fashion. They just don't necessarily talk about mental health and getting help in the way that I wanted to talk about it. So if you're looking for more examples of mental health in YA, this one talks pretty heavily about trauma and depression, as most of Shaun's books do. Most of them address mental health in some way. We Are Okay by LaCour talks about depression and dealing with grief. Anger is a Gift, also dealing with depression, grief, but also anxiety and PTSD. So if you're looking for more examples, these are some definite books that you could go to. I would just say that all 3 of them probably have some pretty intense trigger warnings, so look into those before you pick them. But the books I'm going to talk about are about getting help a little bit more specifically than these 3 are. So let me talk summaries. Let's talk about The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. So this book is about Molly Peskin-Suso, who is 17 years old, and she has had 26 unrequited crushes in her life. Her twin sister Cassie is constantly encouraging her to woman up, to tell boys how she really feels, but Molly over and over again falls back on the idea that she has to be really careful where she puts her heart, because she's fat and she has this constant concern about being rejected. And then Cassie winds up getting a new girlfriend and is falling headfirst into this really intense love life. And so she's pushing Molly more and more to get involved with some guys. Cassie's new girlfriend has this best friend, Will, and so they're both trying to push Molly really hard to start flirting with Will, maybe get involved in a relationship with him. But at the same time, Molly starts falling for a new coworker named Reed. It's a book about all of this. It's about growing up, about feeling like everyone else is growing up faster than you. It's about Molly feeling comfortable with herself, with her body, with new people. And in addition to all of that, Molly takes medication for generalized anxiety disorder. That's something that's really worked in throughout the book, though it's never the focus. It's just sort of this thing that Molly has done for years. It started before the book, it happens during the book. There are a few different discussions of how her anxiety meds might mix with alcohol, which people are sort of pressuring her to start drinking. It's about about how Molly's anxiety plays into how she relates to other people. It's a really excellent book about sisterly relationships, but is also about a main character who regularly takes medication. Let's talk about love is what we're going to talk about next. This is about a girl named Alice who is biromantic and asexual, and the book begins with her college girlfriend breaking up with Alice because Alice is asexual. Like, as a warning going in, that scene is very difficult to read. So Alice decides that she is going to completely swear off romance. She's going to spend her summer after her freshman year of college just hanging out with friends, binge watching shows, working at the library, and then this new guy shows up at the library, Takumi, and Alice feels really close to him, and she maybe wants to have a relationship with him, but she doesn't want to risk the friendship that they already have established, especially because she doesn't want her heart to get broken again. She's also dealing with really intense expectations from her parents that she pursue a certain type of degree. She's dealing with her two best friends dating, and that causing kind of a strain on their overall friendship. And it is about Alice starting to go to a therapist. She's going to a therapist just to try to work through everything that she's been working through. It is in no way about her questioning her identity as being either biromantic or asexual. Both of these things are things that her therapist immediately accepts about her. So her visits with her therapist become more about working on other things happening in Alice's life, and especially dealing with her relationship with her ex-girlfriend. Next, Final Draft. This book is about a fat biracial Ecuadorian girl named Layla, and she has always wanted to be a writer. She has a very, very close relationship with her creative writing teacher at her high school, and then an accident occurs and he ends up being hospitalized. So the school brings in a new creative writing teacher who just so happens to be an iconic author, and Layla is no longer getting the grades in this creative writing course that she used to get. So this new teacher, Nadia, starts pushing Layla more and more to go out and experience things that she never has before, to push herself beyond new experiences so that she can incorporate those things into her writing. What I don't think is obvious about this book from the summary that is available is that it is also about the drawbacks of trying to live every experience so that you can write it. It is about the dangers of throwing yourself too hard into creativity, the dangers of trying too hard to impress someone who doesn't deserve that kind of effort from you. There's other stuff going on in this book with mental health too, and it is ultimately about seeking help from friends and from professionals. There are a couple of quotes near the end that made me sob, and that I had to write about in my journal because I was crying about them. Oh, also this book's main character is pansexual, and there's a female-female romance, so that's important too. Now moving on to Darius the Great is Not Okay. I have talked about this book a lot recently. It feels like probably because it was one of my favorite books of the year, and I've just been talking about it a lot. But here we go. I'm going to summarize it again, and I'm going to try to go into a little bit more detail than I usually do in a standard wrap-up or favorites video. So this book is about Darius Kellner. His mother is Persian and his father is white. But Darius has always felt very disconnected from his Persian heritage. He always feels like his little sister feels more connected to it than he does. There's a line on the back of the book that says he speaks better Klingon than Farsi. He's never met his mother's parents. They sometimes speak over Skype, but he never feels that connection. Sometimes they transition into speaking Farsi, and him and his dad just end up feeling very left out of that conversation. And then it turns out that Darius's grandfather is very ill, and so the entire family is going to go to Iran to visit him, and this is the first time Darius is going to see Iran, the first time he's going to meet the majority of his Persian family members. So he's dealing with all of this. He's also befriending a boy who lives down the road, and they become very close, and he becomes a way for Darius to connect to this part of his life without feeling the intense pressures necessarily of his family. Beyond that, Darius and his father both take medication for depression and have, since before this book started. It's pretty well established that Darius has been taking medication for a while now. So Darius has, this one sort of tenuous connection with his dad, this medication, but it seems like something his dad doesn't want to talk about. It seems like his dad sees this as a real failing for the two of them to have to take medication, so the only other thing that they can connect over is Star Trek: The Next Generation, which Darius and his father watch one episode every single night, and Darius really explains how he feels about a lot of the world by using places and ideas that he's taken from Star Trek. There you go. That is a much longer explanation of this book than I usually give. Some people have also called this a pre-coming out story. It is never confirmed on page that Darius is queer, although there are hints that possibly that could be something he deals with later in life. And finally, I wish you all the best. So this book is being released, as I have said in a couple of other videos, my anticipated queer releases video, May 14th, so you can look for it then. This is about Ben DeBacker, who decides to come out to their parents as non-binary, and in response, their parents throw them out of their home. It is the middle of winter, and Ben is forced to turn to their estranged sister, Hannah, and Hannah very willingly takes Ben in, and they start the final half of senior year at a new high school where they befriend a boy named Nathan, who is sweet and nice, and Ben maybe starts to feel like they have feelings for Nathan. The only person that Ben comes out to besides their sister and her husband is their new therapist, who Ben starts seeing because they've had a couple of panic attacks, and eventually they go on some medication for that as well. So I feel like it's fairly easy to see the through line of getting help in all 5 of these books, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about why each of these books was important to me in my particular mental health journey, and why I think these 5 books stand out to me as personal favorites. So, Upside is, it was like a little premature for me in terms of my mental health journey. I wasn't really willing to acknowledge the ways that I was similar to Molly, and the ways that I was gonna need some help with anxiety. I saw myself in a lot of facets of her anxiety, but I kind of insistently told myself that it wasn't as bad as hers and that it wasn't that big a deal, and which is like bizarre because the whole point of this book is that these are all things that she feels. Because of it, she takes medication for anxiety, which helps her a lot. So this feels like a book I wasn't ready for at the time. I wasn't ready to see myself in, but was kind of a first step in me understanding that maybe I was going to need help beyond just talking myself down in the middle of an anxiety attack. But I really love this book and the way that it normalizes the fact that Molly has been on medication for a while for anxiety. It's not something that she discovers over the course of the book, although those narratives are incredibly important, but it helps to normalize, especially for teens, the fact that it's okay to be on medication and it will affect your day-to-day life, but it can also improve your day-to-day life if that is something that you need. Let's Talk About Love was important to me in 2018 because at the time that I read this book, I had just barely started seeing my first therapist last year. Like, everyone in my family sees a therapist. Everyone in my family is on some kind of medication for depression or anxiety or both, but I was unwilling to see myself as someone who also needed that help. So, last year I started seeing a therapist for the first time. I saw her for a couple of months and then stopped seeing her, but have just recently found a new therapist that I'm really, really excited about. Reading a story about a character who goes to see a therapist and is very insistent about not needing that help, and then having it turn out that she really does need that help, and it doesn't mean that she is any lesser for needing to talk to someone. It just means that sometimes you need that bit of help to work through the things that you have been through. Like, despite the fact that I had been told my entire life that it was totally fine for me to see a therapist, it still took me a long time to get over the public stigma of that and my internal feelings on that, and reading this book was really helpful at the time that I read it because it was putting into words something that I knew I had been feeling and that I knew I was still really anxious about. The same thing goes for I Wish You All the Best. It's appreciated for a lot of the same reasons for me that Let's Talk About Love is appreciated, mostly that it features a main character who starts going to see a therapist, and eventually Ben does start taking meds. That is not something that Alice necessarily has to do, but for Ben, that becomes necessary because of their anxiety. By the time I read this book, I had officially started taking medication for depression and taking as needed medication for anxiety. So this was like a book that also gave me a push to get back into searching for a new therapist that was going to be a better fit for me, and it took me a very long time to do it, but I did. This and Let's Talk About Love are very connected and are on this list for very similar reasons, but also came to me at very different points in time, even within a single year of me dealing with mental health. So I left these two to talk about last because I still don't fully know how to talk about them. It's very difficult for me to talk about these two books and the way that I feel about each of them because they came to me at such an essential moment in my life, and I don't know how much longer it would have taken me to get the help that I needed without these books. I mean, like, I have loving support in my life and people who were encouraging me to get help, but I was still rejecting the idea that I needed that help. I was still constantly, every day, rejecting the fact that I was that sad and that anxious. It couldn't be that big a deal, and I was being ridiculous for not just pushing through it. Despite the fact that I've had such a normalized experience with medication in my life, I just was so constantly rejecting the idea that I needed medication. These books helped me because I read each of them. Each of these books about characters who are dealing with mental health, and every time they expressed something about their mental health, I would burst into tears because I would have to look at that page and say, that's me. That's what I feel. That is what I'm feeling every day right now. That especially goes for Darius the Great. There are so many things about Darius that obviously I cannot relate to, and there are parts of his story that are not mine. But his experience with depression, especially coming from the perspective that he has a parent who is on medication for depression, as do I. And even though he had been on meds for a number of years, every now and then he would express something about his sadness and the way that it worked. And I would have to set the book down to sob because I was rejecting the idea that I was seeing myself in every one of those comments. And if this boy had been on meds for as long as he had, and he was still experiencing those feelings that I was relating to, it was a waking up moment for me in seeing that I was going to need to ask for help beyond the help I was currently receiving, which was so much from my friends and my family, so incredibly much. But people can be helpful and kind and loving, and you can still need more help beyond that. And that is very much what these two books were for me. Layla expresses some things near the end of the book, the bits that I had to write in my journal and cry about, where, again, this was about a character who wound up needing some kind of help by the end of the book, professional help, and she would express things about the way she was feeling that I related to incredibly strongly. So it's difficult to talk about these books because they are so incredibly personal to me, because they were so influential in pushing me that final step that I needed to go and actually start taking medication. This was the book that kind of fit that final puzzle piece into place for me. It was, it still wasn't quite enough for me to do everything on my own. I still needed, like, my mom to come over and help me set up appointments because I was at this point where I still wasn't able to do that for myself. That is why I talk about these books so highly, and especially why I talk about Darius so highly, is because these books are immensely, immensely meaningful to me. I wanted to talk about these books because I appreciate the fact that, not just in my own experience, but as a general experience, they normalize that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to be receiving help. It's incredibly difficult to ask for help. It's incredibly difficult to admit that you might need it. These books specifically were a part of helping me to realize what I needed help with. They showed me the things that I was lying to myself about and then gave me the options for how to deal with those things. And I can't praise that enough. I mean, I think that there is a real stigma still existing about adults reading young adult books, because these are books meant for teens. And what I think is so important about these books is that they're meant for teens, is that these books are there for teens who are dealing with these things. It's so frustrating to me that we still have this stigma because I'm an adult, and reading stories about teens coming to terms with specific mental health concerns and realizing that I shared those was an essential part of my own mental health journey. Mental health is under-discussed in the world at large. It is pushed under the rug, it is made less important, and that is why I try to talk about books that deal with mental health. But while there are so many different facets to how we talk about mental health, I think that something that is essential to be emphasized is that very important step of asking for help, of normalizing receiving that help. And that is why I wanted to uplift and talk a little bit more about these books. Okay guys, that's it. That's the end of my discussion. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the personal impact that these books had on me and the personal impact that I think that they could have on a lot of people. Are there any books that you have read that helped you in your own personal mental health journey? Please share the titles of those books down in the comments below. I hope that you liked this video. I feel like I've been getting into like deeper discussion videos more often. I've enjoyed doing more of these like really in-depth discussion videos. I hope that you are liking them as well because I have some ideas for more that might be coming in the future. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!